guys, Mike here, and I've got my M16A4. It's a complete Arrow precision build. It's actually the only full factory AR I have. I tend to build my own, but Arrow was selling these so cheap I couldn't resist. And I put a Gideon second focal plane Guardian on it, and I want to talk about the reticle and some considerations when we have a 20-inch barrel instead of a 16-inch barrel regarding how to use the BDC reticle. And I'm going to show you what it's like to look through the scope with a rifle that has a front sight base. Come hang out with me for a little bit. It's going to be a short range trip. I just bore sighted this thing and got lucky, and my first 3 shots were basically dead on target at 50 yards, so it's going to be a good day. Come on, let's hang out. All right, let's slide in behind this rifle here and take a look through the optic. There we go. I am doing this with my cell phone. So you can see at 1x, we have a beautiful, crisp, clear sight picture of the front sight base. So that's something that you need to get used to with an LPVO, especially on a 20-inch, but even on an M4, if you have stuff mounted to the top of the handguard, if you have a fixed front sight base, if you have your flip-up sights actually deployed, you're going to see them very nice and clearly through that LPVO. Also, you'll notice they've got sort of an eyebrow here at this range. It's a big block of wood with some steel behind it, and that's so we don't sky around over the berm. It's a safety precaution. And you can see through this that it looks like, oh my gosh, this scope's not a true 1x. It sucks, because you can look at the wooden boards and you'll see there's like a little bit of magnification there, right? You see how it's not a straight line across? That is actually not our scope. That is me setting the fast focus Ocular. This guy right here is set to my eyes, okay? So watch, I'm going to reset this and you'll see what I mean. This, when you turn it one way or the other, will partially increase or decrease magnification at 1x for your eyeballs. The iPhone's camera does not have the same problems that my 47-year-old eyeballs do. And so it perceives this differently. Watch this. Okay, this is literally 15 seconds later. The only reason I didn't do it in one take is because it's hard to adjust something with one hand while you're filming. But you can see now, see that little white dot right there? That dot shows that the fast focus Ocular is in the perfect middle of its adjustment. It's not negative and it's not positive. This is the middle of its adjustment. When it's at the middle of its adjustment, that would be for a theoretically perfect eyeball, also known as my cell phone camera. It's theoretically pretty much perfect, right? So watch what happens now when I slide behind the optic. Oh, look at that. It's a true 1x after all. See how those boards line up really nicely when they didn't line up before? Yeah. So that's why when you have YouTubers talk about, oh, I don't know if it's a true 1x, you don't know that they set that Ocular correctly for their camera or for their eyes. Maybe they don't even know that sucker exists, right? So read your manual, set that adjustable Ocular for your eyeballs, and it'll make a huge difference in your experience at 1 power. You might notice that, let me zoom in here and see if we can zoom in and see. You might notice that depending on how you look through it, this thing has a pretty generous eye box. The reticle may not appear to be perfectly lined up with the front sight. That is okay. That actually does not matter at all. So don't try to slave that reticle to the front sight like you would if it was a red dot and you were trying to co-witness and you can kind of slave the dot to the sights. No, forget it with an LPVO. There's a bunch of glass in here. There's a bunch of parallax stuff going on. The parallax is set at 100 yards. The focus of the optic is set at 100 yards. The focus of the optic is never going to be set at like a foot in front of the ocular lens, all right? So it's going to see this is going to be fuzzy on purpose. You don't want this to be perfect because you want that guy way out there to be perfect. Okay, this is really hard to film, but I'm going to do my best. So here's the neat part about running an LPVO when you have a fixed front sight base. The front sight base kind of points you to the center of the optic for your 1x close quarters shooting. So like, it's really easy right now to see where the middle of the scope is. I could get a really fast front sight picture, and you know, even if I didn't pick up my reticle perfectly, at close distances, say out to 25 yards, I could pretty much aim with the fuzzy shadow of that front sight. But it does kind of suck that it's in the way, and at 1x it's occluding some of my field of view. There's a lot of field of view that I'm missing underneath my target because the front sight's in the way. But as we zoom in from 1x to 8x, it gets fuzzier and fuzzier. This is really hard to do without, and by the time I get to 8, hey, look at that. There's 8 power. Now I'm at my max, and the front sight is effectively gone. And so it's not a factor. Once you go to full magnification, you're not going to be worried about that front sight at all once you go past, say, 2 or 3 power. Let me zoom in and see if I get my focus right. Hopefully you can see where my first 3 shots have hit. Right on that 0 in the middle of the IDPA target, and I pulled one slightly high left. I'm going to call that good. I might take a couple more shots to the head just to make sure, but not bad for a bore sight job. Those are my first 3 rounds fired of the day.
Here's my sight picture. I'm putting the tip of the chevron right in the middle of the head box of this IDPA target at 50 yards. This reticle is set up for a 50-200 battle sight 0 for 5.56 NATO with M193 55 grain projectiles coming out of a 16-inch barrel. Got a 20-inch barrel today, and we'll see how that affects us later on. But for now, I'm zeroing at 50 yards. That's my sight picture.
Okay, I fired 3 shots off camera. Should have filmed myself doing it, whatever. Here's my spotting scope. It's an old Bushnell because Gideon doesn't make a spotting scope yet. And you can see I hit just a little bit high. Alright, so this is now a zeroing video. Let's bring this sucker down about 2 inches at 50 yards. 2 inches at 50 yards. Okay guys, so I need to go 2 inches down at 50 yards. This optic is set up for a 50-200 battle sight 0. So I'm zeroing at 50 yards. I'm going to pull the turret away from the scope body so I can move it. See, if I push down, I can't turn it at all. If I push it up, then I can make my turns. Alright, so there's 0. If I go this way, it's up. I don't want to go that way, I want to go down. This is half MOA per click at 100 yards. So that would be a ½ inch at 100 yards roughly. But it's a ¼ inch at 50 yards. So I need 8 clicks. I need roughly 8 clicks going down in order to go down 2 inches at 50. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Push back down, and let's take 3 shots and see how it goes. I like this Aero Precision AR build so much that the only thing I changed about it was putting in a 2-stage Geisley trigger because it shoots so accurately. I thought I wasn't reaching my maximum possible performance with the kind of gritty mil-spec trigger that it came with. So I cheated and put a Geisley in it, and now it's, well, you'll see, I hope. So I'm using the tip of my triangle. The tip of that chevron is my aiming point. I'm going to try 3 shots to the head on my IDPA target. Wow, yeah. That's the second time I've put 2 rounds in one hole today. They're just a touch low, just a touch low. I'm gonna come back a couple of clicks. Back to the spotting scope and da-da-da-dun. Yeah, I was able to see that through the 1 to 8x Guardian just fine. I don't really need the spotting scope. But out there in YouTube land, you guys probably do. See how I'm just about an inch short? Alright, that's okay. So now let's go to the turret. Okay, so I was hitting just a little bit low. I'm going to go up 1, 2 for good luck. And then I'm going to remove this turret. I'm just going to use a 45 caliber casing that I found lying around. There we go. And we're going to unscrew this cover here, and we're going to pull the outer turret off. We're going to find our 0. There it is. And we're going to try to push it back down into place. Ah, we got lucky. That went pretty well. There are fewer splines on here than there are clicks in the actual turret. Sometimes it can be a bit of a bear to push that back into place, okay? Sometimes you're going to struggle with it. You're going to have to wiggle, 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 and eventually it's going to give in and let you push it down, okay? Let's try the windage here. I've got that indicating 20 right now, but I'm happy with my windage as well. We're going to pull this away from the scope body. We're going to find our 0, and we're going to push back down just like that. Ah, I got lucky on that one too. But the lesson remains, if you get unlucky in the alignment and you're trying to push that outer turret back on to reset 0, don't force it. Wiggle, 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 and jiggle, and eventually it will kind of slide on its own, like you just saw. It'll just pop into place, okay? If you're trying to force it on there and hitting it with a mallet to push it on, you're doing it wrong. Wiggle it until it goes smoothly into place like that. Now I've got my 0 reset, and I'm just going to work with the reticle from now on.
Here's my sight picture at 100 yards, and I wanted to show you this really quick. I hit exactly where I was aiming. It was uneventful, but you'll see that the IDPA target lines up really nicely with the outer ring, specifically the little sticks that are coming out from each side of the outer ring. This is at full magnification at 8x power at 100 yards, because this is a second focal plane reticle. But if you have a standard size target that is 18.5, 19 inches from shoulder to shoulder, which a lot of targets are out there in the real world, then you can use this to range that target at 100 yards. When it lines up with the outer ring of the reticle, and most exactly when it lines up with those little tabs on the outside of the outer ring, your target of 18.5 inches is 100 yards away from you. And that can be super useful to know out there in the field.
Okay guys, I skipped shooting at 100 yards because that's easy. Let's go to 200. Slide behind the optic here. And that's our hold. Alright, so I'm going to use the tip of our chevron, our triangle again. That's going to be a hit in the upper A zone, I hope. This is what 8x at 200 yards looks like through my iPhone. It's a lot better with your actual eyes, kids. Trust me on this. But through an iPhone 11, that's what it looks like. That's what my aiming point's going to be. I'm using the 5200 battle sight 0, and so it should be pretty close. On the other hand, I have a 20-inch barrel instead of a 16-inch barrel. So my prediction is, with a little bit more velocity added with my longer barrel, I'm going to hit a little bit higher than I expect. I may hit up in the neck, theoretically, but there is no substitute for shooting rounds downrange. Let's find out what happens in real life right now. Okay, at 200 yards, I cannot see a 22 caliber 5.56 hole through the Gideon Guardian 1-8. I'm still not going to complain. It's pretty hard to see a hole that big at 8x, no matter how much you spend. Let's go to the spotting scope. Okay, I'm going to go down there in a little bit and take a better video. But what I've done is I've hit this target in the shoulder there. I am high and right. Okay, so what do we learn? Zeroing at 50 is not the same thing as zeroing at 200. It can get you on paper. What I'm going to do now is going to refine my 0. I'm going to adjust. I need to come several inches left and several inches down and refine my 0 so that it's on at 200, and then I'll be even better at 50 yards than I was. So my 50 yard 0 got me on at 200 yards. Those are effective hits on target, but they're not good enough. They're not what I know this rifle and I can shoot. So I'm gonna adjust left and down off camera to refine my zero at 200 yards. Okay guys, I've driven down to the 200 yard target while we have got a cold range. These are the first 3 hits that I saw on the spotting scope, which I tried to show you with my cell phone looking through the spotting scope. I went too far, I forgot that I was at 200 yards, did too many clicks, whoops, and then came back to the middle. These are the last 3 and 4 groups that I shot. So, been shooting groups of 3. Anyway, I've got one here. I'm not going to count him. These 3 here are my final group. And so they're just a hair to the left, but we're 200 yards away. There's a bit of wind, whatever. It could be me. That's fine. At 200 yards, like a 1-inch difference out of a 1 to 8, I'm acceptable with that. That's fine. But notice, so I wasn't aiming for the 0. In the very middle, I was aiming for like an upper thoracic type shot. So really this top piece, this top part of the A zone, this is my aiming point. This was the tip of my triangle. With the 16-inch barrel, I would expect for the round to come back down for the second intersection at 200 yards. I would want it to be about here, and it was with one of my shots. As predicted, this is a little high, but it's not as high as I thought it might be. I was predicting that I might go all the way into the neck, which would be maybe 3 inches high at 200, or maybe 2.5 inches. I don't know how tall that is, but I thought I would probably be in the neck area with the extra velocity from this 20-inch barrel. And really, it's within the group size of what I'm capable of shooting. Like if this is my 3-round group, and I'm gonna count these 2, and this is the flyer or whatever, I'm not gonna be that picky about it. At 200 yards, I think the BDC for me so far is still the 5200 battle sight 0 is holding up pretty well, right? It's not a major shift. So I think I'm okay with doing the 5200 on a 20-inch AR and not feeling like I screwed myself over with that 0 philosophy. All right, if you disagree, here's your chance to tell me why in the comments. Here's our 200-yard target. I'm going to go to 300 yards next, and we won't be able to tell anything even through the spotting scope. Even with the 60 power spotting scope, you can't spot 22 caliber holes at 300 yards. So I'm going to shoot. I'm going to start with ringing some steel just to make sure I'm on. Then I'll shoot paper, and then I'll have to drive down again and look at it with you here because the spotting scope is basically useless at this point. Okay guys, I'm fuzzy right now, but I want to show you that this is for real. So I put out, I've got a 400 millimeter lens on my camera, a really long zoom lens, and it's zoomed and centered on my targets at 300 yards. I've never tried this before on camera. You should see 3 white painted steel targets. There's an IDPA torso, standard torso size target in the middle, a smaller target on the right, and an even smaller one on the left that is only like 6 inches wide. We're going to try the big torso target first. And I'm just going to see if I can ring steel because like I said, the spotting scope is useless at this distance. So I need kind of instant feedback here to see if I'm on target at all. Can I ring the steel at all? I do have the rifle nicely supported front and rear, so hopefully my breath is not too much of a factor. I'm going to hold dead on. Here we go. There it is. Let's try one more. Yeah. One more. Okay, there it is. Okay, I can see pushing a little bit left right now. Pushing a little bit left. That might just be, I might have canted my reticle a little bit. I don't know. Let's try the smaller one on the right. Oh yeah, there we go. That's dead center on the right. Okay. Let's try The tiny one on the left, I hope you guys can see this. I can see it clearly through the 8X. I don't know how you can see it on YouTube. Here we go. Nope. There it is. There it is. All right. So, barrel's a little bit warm at this point. I'm going to take a picture and show you what my hold is at 300 yards. Now I'm going to shoot a 5-shot group at 300, and let's see where it hits. I did get at least one hit on that tiny target on the left. All right, here we go.
Okay, this picture is going to give you an idea of the ranging and holds at 300 yards in the Gideon second focal plane reticle. So remember how at 100 yards our 18.5-inch wide IDPA target lined up so nicely with those tabs on the outside of the outer ring. Well, now it's 3 times as far away. It's at 300 yards instead of 100 yards. So now it's going to actually line itself up with the width of the chevron. So when you have a standard target size that's 18.5 inches wide or so, you will know it's at 300 yards when it lines up nicely with the outer edges of that chevron. However, our bullet is actually going to drop. I'm not actually aimed at the neck here, which is what it would have been at 50 or 100 or 200 yards. Between 200 yards and 300 yards, the bullet is going to drop from the tip of the chevron down to the tip of the top of that BDC ladder. So you see the top of that BDC ladder, there's like a little post with a tip there, and it's nestled in between the 2 legs of the chevron. That's our point of aim. So if I took a shot as depicted in this image, I would hit that target about halfway up, about right in the middle, bisected about halfway from the top and the bottom. Now this shot I took to simulate a 400-yard hold and ranging. It's a reduced silhouette target of smaller size, still at 300 yards. I'm not going to bore you with the math details on it. For purposes of the video, let's just pretend that we have, again, a standard 18.5-inch wide IDPA target, but now we've added an additional football field between us and the target. So it's like Mr. Rogers in the land of make-believe. Yay! We're going to pretend that a standard size target that we've been shooting at all day is 400 yards away, and you see how it fits in the width of the first hash mark that is underneath the tip of that ladder. So we've gone down from 300 one notch to 400. See how that works? The notch below it will be 500 yards, and the notch below that one at the bottom will be 600 yards.
Okay, 5 nice, well-aimed shots in the same place, please, on my paper target at 300 yards. All right, I'm going to aim dead center this time, not the high thoracic cavity, but dead center on my target. Oh, my heartbeat's going crazy. Settle down, Mike Branson. Was that sniper slow? No. Was it fast enough to probably heat up the barrel during the string? Yes. Am I going to pay a price for that when I go down to 300 yards? Maybe. But I didn't want to make you sit and watch me take one shot every 2 minutes like the real precision guys do. See how nice I am? Okay, so here I am at the 300-yard steel targets I was shooting. I've hit this one several times. I hit this one a couple of times, and I even hit this little guy. And you guys online are like, man, I saw you miss. You missed that little target a couple times. Yeah, but I'm 3 football fields away. And how big is that little target? Right. So if I missed it a couple times, you know what? I'm not going to beat myself up on that. Let's check the paper target. Okay guys, I'm happy to see this. I fired 5 rounds at my paper target. 1 is out of the A zone. 2, 3, 4, 5. I've got 4 out of 5 in the A zone on my IDPA target at 300 yards. So my hold was the top of my ladder. That little point, that's the top of the ladder, is what I was holding dead center here. And this is where I hit 3 football fields away with a $750 Aero Precision AR and less than $500 worth of scope and mount, okay? So we're talking about a $1,200 package total as of 2024. You would notice the edges of my my triangle or my chevron were on the sides of the target here for ranging. So on a standard steel or paper target that happens to be 18 to 19 inches wide, if you see the edges of that chevron on the shoulders on the side like this, then you can range that he's about 300 yards away, okay? I'm super happy with this for what I've got in the gun. Oh, I forgot the Geisley trigger. That's a $200 trigger. So we're up to, you know, $1,400 now. You get the idea. I'll take this all day, every day, especially you saw how fast I was shooting. I was not playing sniper with it. That was sort of a combat balance of speed and accuracy. Shoot, recover, shoot, recover. I'm happy with this. Nice day at the range. Hope you guys that have Guardians are enjoying them. Now you know how the reticle works, and I will see you soon on YouTube.